My father-in-law slid the folder across the restaurant table like he was doing me a favor. He didn't look up when he did it, just pushed it toward me with 2 fingers, the way you'd push leftovers to the edge of a counter before throwing them away. We had our attorney draw it up this morning, he said. Everything's in order. Sign it tonight and we won't make this ugly. My wife looked at him. Dad, what is that? Her mother touched her hand. It's just paperwork, sweetheart. Adult paperwork. My name is Marcus Reed. I've been married to Claire for 2 years. She's always known me as the guy who drives a 10-year-old pickup, wears the same 3 flannel shirts in rotation, and brings home a modest salary from what she thinks is a mid-level administrative job in hospital operations. She knows I work long hours. She knows I care about the work. She thinks that's just the kind of man I am. She doesn't know that I founded Meridian Health Group 11 years ago when I was 22 years old with $140,000 in student loan debt and an idea on a legal pad. She doesn't know that Meridian now operates 31 hospitals and specialty clinics across 9 states. She doesn't know that the man sitting across from me right now, her father, the one who once told her she was settling, has worked as a regional facilities director at Meridian's flagship hospital for the last 4 years, and that his entire department, his title, his annual bonus structure, his company car, and his corner office on the 6th floor exist because I built the infrastructure that made all of it possible. She doesn't know any of that. And I had planned to keep it that way for a while longer. The folder sat between us on the white tablecloth. I didn't open it. What is this? Claire asked again, her voice tighter now. Her father finally looked at me. He had the kind of face that had been handsome once and knew it, the kind that had never quite adjusted to being ordinary. It's a separation agreement, he said. Generous terms. More than generous. Honestly, given what you bring to this marriage. Her mother nodded. She had been nodding since we sat down, like a metronome set to the rhythm of her husband's opinions. We love Claire. This is about Claire. You're asking my husband to sign divorce papers, Claire said. She didn't raise her voice. She got quieter, which I had learned was far more dangerous. We're asking him to be realistic, her father said. He finally looked at me directly. You're a decent enough man, Marcus. I'm sure you work hard. But Claire has a future that requires a certain kind of partner. Someone who can grow with her. You've been married 2 years and you're still driving that truck. You're still renting. My daughter didn't graduate summa cum laude from Georgetown to spend her 30s waiting for someone to figure himself out. I looked at him for a moment. Then I looked at the folder. I picked it up, opened it, read the first page. Attorney's letterhead. Boilerplate language about assets and terms. At the bottom of the second page, a cashier's check was paper-clipped. $300,000. Made out to me. I closed the folder. I set it down. I slid it back across the table. I'm not signing that, I said. Her father's jaw tightened. Marcus. I married your daughter because I love her, I said. Not because I needed anything from her. Not because I was looking for a step up. I have everything I need. He let out a short breath through his nose, the kind that sounds like a laugh but isn't. Men like you always say that. Men like me, I repeated. You know what I mean? I do, I said. I just want to make sure you say it clearly. He leaned forward. Men who grew up without much. Men who find a woman from a good family and mistake gratitude for love. Men who don't have a plan. He sat back. Claire deserves a man with a plan. Claire was very still beside me. I had told myself I wouldn't do this tonight. I had told myself I would let it go, take Claire home, and deal with it privately the way I had dealt with everything privately for the last 11 years. I was good at that. I had built an entire company on the discipline of not needing anyone to know. But I looked at my wife's face. The way she was sitting perfectly straight. The way she was pressing her thumbnail into her palm under the table because she thought I couldn't see it. I reached into the inside pocket of my jacket. I set my business card on the table. My real one. The one with the Meridian Health Group logo embossed in navy blue. The one that says Marcus Reed, founder and chairman. Her father looked at it. Something moved across his face that I couldn't quite name. Not recognition, not yet. More like the feeling right before recognition, when your brain knows something is wrong but hasn't finished processing why. I have a plan, I said quietly. I've had one since before your daughter and I ever met. He picked up the card. Read it. Set it down. Picked it up again. This is... He stopped. Meridian Health Group, I said. 31 facilities. About 9,000 employees across the network. The flagship hospital where you've worked for the last 4 years. The benefits package you're on. The performance review process your department went through last spring. The new wing they broke ground on in March. I paused. That's all mine. The table went silent in the particular way that only happens when everyone at it stops breathing at the same moment. Her mother's hand froze on her wine glass. Claire turned and looked at me. Not with anger. Not with hurt. With the expression of someone who has just heard a sentence in a language they didn't know they spoke. Her father's voice came out low and strange. You're not serious. I can have our general counsel call you in the morning if you'd like confirmation, I said. Or I can pull up the founding documents on my phone right now. Either way, you work in administration, he said. It wasn't an argument. It was a man trying to hold on to a version of reality that had just been handed back to him. I work in whatever I want, I said. That's what ownership looks like when you don't need anyone to know about it. Claire picked up the card, turned it over, set it down, picked it up again. I watched her do it, and I felt the weight of everything I had carried quietly for 2 years shift between us. Why? She said finally. Not why didn't you tell me? Just why? Like she was asking something deeper than the obvious question. Because I needed one part of my life that was just mine, I said. One relationship where the first thing someone knew about me wasn't the company. Where I was just Marcus. Where you could decide whether you wanted to be with me before you knew what came with it. Her father stood up. His chair scraped back louder than he intended. You sat in my house. You let me believe. I let you believe what you decided to believe, I said, staying seated. I never lied to you. You made assumptions and I didn't correct them. That's different. You humiliated me. I looked up at him. I haven't done anything yet. He understood what I meant. I saw it land. He sat back down. We didn't finish dinner. In the car on the way home, Claire didn't speak for a long time. The city moved past the windows. I kept both hands on the wheel. The hospital where I had my appendix out 3 years ago, she said eventually. Before we met? Yes. That was yours. Yes. She looked out the window. The charity gala we went to in January. The Meridian Foundation event. I organized the first one 9 years ago, I said. The foundation is a separate entity, but yes, I chair the board. And you walked around that party all night like you'd never been there before. I walked around that party like a man who was watching his wife fall in love with something he built without knowing he built it, I said. That was a good night, actually. She didn't say anything to that for a while. Then, you should have told me. Yes, I said. I should have told you before tonight. I was working up to it. Working up to it for 2 years. I told you I work slowly. She made a sound that might have been the beginning of a laugh. That's not funny. It's a little funny. She turned and looked at me in the dark of the car. I'm angry at you. I know. I'm also. She stopped. Started again. I married you because you showed up to our third date with a broken umbrella and still held it over me the whole walk to the restaurant even though it didn't work. I married you because you remembered my sister's birthday and mailed her a card before I even mentioned it. I married you because you are the only person I have ever been with who listens to understand instead of listens to respond. She paused. I didn't marry you for a company. I know that, I said. That's why I didn't tell you about the company. She was quiet again. Then, she picked up the business card that she had apparently slipped into her jacket pocket at the restaurant. She looked at it in the orange light from the street lamps. Founder and chairman, she read aloud. Yes, Marcus Raid. That's me. She put the card back in her pocket. We're going to have a very long conversation when we get home. I know that too. Her father called 3 times before we pulled into our driveway. I let all 3 go to voicemail. The long conversation lasted until 2 in the morning. I told her everything. The idea, when I was 22, the first investor, a retired surgeon named Dr. Ellison who took a chance on a business plan that was half brilliant and half completely wrong. The first facility, a struggling rural clinic in eastern Tennessee that we turned around in 14 months. The growth over a decade, the deliberate anonymity, the way I had structured the public-facing leadership so that the CEO and COO were the faces of the company while I remained in the background by choice. Not hiding, just quiet. She asked good questions. Detailed ones. She had always been sharp. By the time we went to bed, she understood the whole shape of it, and I understood that she was still deciding how to feel. The next morning, her father sent an email. Marcus, we need to speak. There are implications here for my position that I think you understand. I'm asking for a professional conversation separate from what happened last night. I read it twice. Then I forwarded it to my assistant with a note. Schedule him for Thursday. Conference room B, 20 minutes. Not my office. Conference room B, which is on the 4th floor, 2 floors below where he works, and has a glass wall that faces the main corridor. I wanted him to walk past people who worked for him on his way to sit across from me. I wore the flannel shirt. He came in at 9 sharp, which told me he was nervous. He sat down across from me and looked at the table for a moment before he looked up. "I want to apologize," he said, "for last night. It was your mother-in-law's idea. But I agreed to it and that was wrong. I waited. I made assumptions about you that were unfair," he said. "About who you were. What you were capable of." He paused. "I'd like to move forward professionally." "I appreciate that," I said. He relaxed slightly. "I also want to be honest with you about something," I said. "The way you spoke to me last night, the thing you said about men who grow up without much finding women from good families that didn't come from nowhere. That's not a one-night opinion. That's how you see people." I leaned forward slightly. "And I need you to understand that if you speak to your daughter that way, if you ever sit across from her and try to make her feel like she made a mistake, I will not be professional about it. That's the only thing I want to say on the personal side." His jaw tightened. But he nodded. "On the professional side," I said, "your position is not in jeopardy. You're good at your job. Your team respects you and your department has strong numbers. None of that changes." I paused. "But the bonus structure review that's coming up in Q3 will go through me directly this year. I want to be transparent about that." He didn't say anything. "We good?" I asked. He looked at me for a long moment. Something moved through his expression, not defeat, exactly. More like a man recalibrating. Deciding who he was going to be on the other side of the information he now had. "We're good," he said. He stood. We shook hands. He left. I sat in conference room B for a few minutes after he was gone, looking out the glass wall at the corridor where nurses and administrators and billing staff moved past with coffee cups and clipboards and that particular kind of focus that belongs to people who have spent their careers caring for other people's worst days. I had built this. Not to prove anything. Not to become someone. I had built it because when I was 16 my mother spent 9 days in a hospital that was understaffed and underfunded and exhausted, and a nurse named Patricia who worked a double shift both weekends sat with her for an hour on a Tuesday night when there was no medical reason to, just because my mother was scared. I had built it because of Patricia. Because I wanted to build places where Patricias could actually do their jobs. I had never told that story in a press release. The announcement went out the following Monday. Meridian Health Group names Marcus Reed as public-facing chairman following internal restructure. Reed, who founded the company in 2013 and has served as silent chairman since its inception, will now take an active role in external communications and strategic direction. My phone ran out of battery by noon. Old college roommates. Former colleagues. A professor from my undergrad who I hadn't spoken to in 8 years. 2 of Claire's cousins who had, at our wedding, spent 20 minutes explaining to me why Claire was making an interesting choice. The story got picked up by a health industry publication by Tuesday morning. By Wednesday, it was in the business section of 2 major newspapers. Not because of the money, there were bigger companies with quieter founders, but because of the framing. 11 years of anonymity. A founder who had deliberately stayed invisible while building something real. Claire called me at lunch on Wednesday. "A reporter just emailed me," she said. "Through my work address. Forward it to our comms team. I'll have someone handle it." "Marcus." "Yeah. My mother called me this morning." "What did she say?" A pause. "She said she always believed in you." I laughed. "I couldn't help it." "I know," Claire said. "I know." But she was laughing too, a little, and that meant something. Her father and I found a functional working rhythm over the following months. He was good at his job, and knowing that I knew that seemed to matter to him in a way that made him better at it. There was never warmth between us, but there was respect, and I had learned a long time ago that respect was more durable than warmth in a professional relationship. Warmth was weather. Respect was infrastructure. Her mother sent a fruit basket to my office with a card that said, "We're so proud of everything you've built." My assistant put it in the break room. The staff ate everything in it by 10:30. On a Friday evening about 3 months after the dinner, Claire and I went back to a rooftop bar we had gone to on our first date. It was the kind of place that had too many plants and not enough chairs, and the drinks were overpriced and neither of us cared. We stood at the railing and looked at the city. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Always. When you were deciding not to tell me. Were you ever worried I would be angry? Like this angry?" "Yes," I said honestly. "But you still didn't tell me." "I was more worried about the alternative," I said. "About you finding out before you really knew me, and not being able to separate the two. I've watched it happen. People find out about the company and suddenly they're not talking to me anymore. They're talking to the founder. Everything gets filtered through it." I paused. "I didn't want that with you. You were the first person in a long time who talked to me like I was just a person." She was quiet for a moment. "You know what I remember about our second date?" she said. "The rainstorm. Before the rainstorm. We were waiting for a table and you were telling me about this patient intake process you were supposedly redesigning for work, this whole administrative system, and you got so animated about it. Your whole face changed. I remember thinking, this man actually loves what he does. Not in a performing passion for the interview way. Actually loves it. She looked at me. I fell for you a little bit right then. The intake redesign was real, I said. I was redesigning it for the flagship hospital. The conversation was real. I know that now. She smiled. It explains why you knew so much detail about hospital administration. I thought I might have oversold it a little. You were fine. You were actually interesting. She leaned her head against my shoulder for a moment. You could have just told me, you know? I think I would have been okay. Probably, I said. But I didn't know you well enough yet to know that. And I had been wrong before about who would be okay. She nodded slowly. Someone wasn't okay. Someone wasn't okay, I confirmed. And I built a lot of walls after that. Some of them were the right walls. Some of them were excessive. This one was excessive. This one was excessive, I agreed. She lifted her head and looked at me. I'm still a little angry. I know. I'm also very proud of you. Which is annoying because I feel like I don't have the right to be proud of you for something you did before I knew you. You can be proud of me, I said. I'm proud of you all the time for things you did before I met you. She thought about that. That's a good answer. I occasionally have good answers. She reached into her jacket pocket and I saw the edge of the business card she had taken from the restaurant table 3 months ago. Still there, worn soft at the corner from being taken out and put back. She pulled it out and looked at it the way she had that first night. Founder and chairman, she said. Still me. Still you, she said. She put it back. I'm going to need a much bigger wallet. She said it like a joke, but she was leaning into me when she said it, and the city was doing what cities do in the early evening when the light goes gold and everything looks briefly like the best version of itself. I hadn't needed a grand reveal. I hadn't needed the applause or the press release or the moment in the conference room with her father looking at me across the table. I had needed one person to know me before they knew what I had, and to want to stay after they found out. She was staying. Everything else was just a building. I had built a lot of buildings. They held up. So would this. The lights of Meridian's flagship hospital glowed across the skyline 2 miles east of where we were standing. I knew every corridor in that building. I knew the name of the woman who had designed the patient intake process I had been gushing about on our second date. I knew the shifts and the ratios and the endowment structure of the foundation that funded the community clinic on its ground floor. And I knew, standing there on that rooftop with my wife leaning against my shoulder and the city spreading itself out in every direction, that none of it meant as much as having a person who wanted to know you before they knew what you were worth. I had waited a long time for someone who could do that. It turned out she was the daughter of a man who worked for me, which, when I thought about it, was exactly the kind of story that sounded like it couldn't be true until it was.